The boy opens his eyes to see the rain and wonders where he is. A girl's hands come to him, grabbing him and telling him not to worry because he can be her pet. She walks home with him, and he wonders what happened, thinking that he is cold and numb. He wonders if he passed out, but recognizes the girl carrying him as Karen from his class. However, he doesn't know why she's carrying him or why she's even holding him so close. He looks at her plot, and she continues bringing him home. She puts down her bag and gets inside. He sits inside her house, wondering what's going on. But as he tries to talk to her, he realizes that his muscles are too cold and numb. Karen asks him if he's ready, and he realizes that she's extremely sweet here and that he's never seen her smile before. Karen's mother calls for her, and he sees Karen's mom. She tells her that having a dog is a huge responsibility, and that it must be bathed. So Karen agrees that she will bathe her dog, but hates the idea of talking to her mom. She goes inside the bathroom with him and begins developing plot. I mean a lot of plot. Why is she removing all of her plot in front of him? He wonders how she's doing this in front of him, and she continues developing plot until all of it has been developed. She carries him inside with her, taking him to the mirror. She sets him down in between her plots, and he finally realizes the situation he's in. He's a dog, and she begins rubbing him to clean him. His tail begins to flutter in her plot, and she calls him a bad boy for wagging his tail. She grabs it and starts playing with it. She tells him to hold on for a second, and he tries his hardest to tell her that he's actually from her class. However, she begins cleaning her plot and developing more plot. Even more plot. They literally created a whole song for this montage of plot cleaning. No, it's not done yet, they're still going. They're blowing the entire budget of this episode just to show us how good her plot is, but hey, I'm not complaining. All this plot is just story progression after all. She puts him in the bath with her, and he realizes that he can't look away from the amazing plot he's getting to experience. She begins going crazy, calling him a cute boy. She falls in love with him and starts pretending to bark and bites his nose and starts licking his black tip. He wonders what's going on and how this is happening. Karen's mom tells her that dinner is ready, and she reluctantly leaves the bath. They have dinner together, and he thinks she smells nice. Karen's mom asks her if he knows any tricks, but she tells her mom that he's still just a puppy. She brings him back to her room, and he begins drying himself. She looks at him and ponders, telling him to sit. He doesn't respond, and he wonders why she's trying to make him do tricks. He thinks that if he actually sits for her, then he will just be a dog. She smirks at him, and he begins hesitating, and eventually sits for her. She then extends her hand to him, telling him to shake. He begins thinking that he would have never been able to touch her hand before, but now she's extending it for him. He extends his paw, and she holds it, cheering and calling him a good boy. He thinks that now that he's a dog, he can finally hold his crush's hand. She tells him that she's going to call him Pachita. The next day, he looks at the door and begins thinking of a way to leave the house. He remembers his room at his house, thinking that it was the last place he remembers before disappearing. He begins trying to claw at the door, but he is unable to reach the lock no matter how high he jumps. He thinks that maybe he can find a way to transform back if he goes home. But Karen comes and picks him up, telling him that he shouldn't be scratching at the door. He thinks that it's been a few days where he's excited to have been living with the girl he likes, but is missing his memories from before he disappeared. Karen asks him if he would like to go outside, and he thinks that she's actually going to take him on a date. She takes out the collar, and he thinks that the cold steel around him feels good with her warm hands tugging on him. He thinks that the collar around him now removed any doubts from his head, that he is truly her dog now. They go on a walk together, and he sees the world from the ground perspective, thinking that it looks scary because of how big everything is. Girls think that he looks cute, and he gets stressed out knowing they can see his plot out. He keeps walking with Karen, but she begins giggling and asks him if this is fun. She begins running, and he thinks that he can see London and France, the entire world, from this angle. However, he hears a baseball hitting a bat and sees the ball flying towards Karen. He tugs on the leash to save her, but she ends up falling on him, and let's just say she happens to fall in the most plot-convenient way there is. He's just a dog playing with a cat, you know. She picks him up, calling him a bad boy and that he shouldn't do that, but thanks him for keeping her safe. She sees that his nose is red and wonders if he hit his nose. She looks around to make sure no one's around and begins to lick his nose. The kids come up and apologize for hitting the ball, but she tells them that they should be careful where they play around because people are walking their dogs. They apologize to her and begin running, thinking that she must be an evil witch. Pachita thinks that she must only like dogs and not humans, but begins feeling like he is about to release everything. She smiles and gets excited that he's finally about to let it out, and walks him to a pole to do it. He thinks that this must be a joke, that he's going to have to do this with his crush right there. He thinks that he will be able to stand his ground and not take a leak in front of the girl he likes. So much for his Giga Chad resolve. He thinks that he couldn't have done anything else because he was on a leash. He wishes he could tell Karen how he truly feels about her, so he runs up and tries to tell her that he likes her, but she can only hear a bark from him. She asks him if he wants to play, and he wishes that he could tell her how he felt when they're so close. That he's right here but can't tell her how he feels. Karen's mom tells her that her friend is over, and she enters the room. She sees the dog and gets scared. He recognizes this girl as the hot dumb girl Nekatani, and sees them developing plot with each other. He wonders if he's in heaven seeing them do this together. Karen puts down the books, and she is ready to teach her everything. Her friend thinks that she's evil but that she's the coolest person she knows. He remembers Nekatani was the person he would never hang out with even though she lived right next to his house. He thinks that if he would be able to leave with her, then he might be able to go home. He remembers that his home was the last place he was, and decides that he might be able to get Nekatani to like him and bring him over to her house. Karen's mom knocks on the door and calls her out, and Pachita thinks that this is his moment to shine. He decides that he will go up to her and show her the tricks that he's learned. He walks up to her, but as she sees him, she is mortified and runs away screaming and crying. He wonders why she's doing that, and that this shouldn't be happening. He tries to show that he's just a tiny puppy, but she is on the verge of getting a heart attack. He thinks that his perfect plan has been ruined, and she goes on her bed and is scared of him. A centipede crawls behind her, and he tries to warn her, but she keeps crying. The centipede crawls on her, and Pachita wants to try to get the centipede off of her. She continues running away until she slips outside and falls unconscious. He sees the centipede and it starts walking inside her shirt again. Pachita wants to do something, so he decides to go underneath her shirt. He walks around until he reaches it and turns over before getting squished. She begins having a plot-filled dream, and Pachita finally catches the centipede. However, she continues twisting around, and as he is about to be squished, he decides to leave through the plot-filled path. He throws the centipede away, but she catches him and throws him up. Poor Pachita just finished saving her from the final boss, but sees that she's been scratched. He walks towards her because he hasn't had enough of her plot development, and thinks that he will try to do his best to get her attention. He begins licking her foot because of course we have to include that type of plot in this story as well. She begins feeling more comfortable, so he decides to start licking her knee to make her feel better. She starts laughing, and he thinks that he wishes she could be licking his corn dog like that. I mean petting his corn dog. I mean petting him because he's a dog. Just forget it. Anyway, Karen walks in on them developing plot and gets extremely angry. She decides to use her full force and kick her toes into the wall. Foot plot development part 2. She tells him to come to her, and puts her feet towards him, telling him to lick her toes too. Bro, what is this show? He decides to walk up towards Karen and thinks that he has no choice, so he decides to tickle her. This is the greatest plot development move of all time, and it causes her to reach her plot's climax instantly. He sees Nekatani's freaked out, and thinks that it's totally normal for the way this girl is acting. Karen walks up to her, asking her what she was doing with her dog in the meantime. She tells her that he got in her dress, and Karen asks if it was some accident or if he did it out of his own will. Nekatani tells her it wasn't an accident, and Karen is enraged because her best friend caused her dog to cheat on her in a style made by doggies.
What do you mean by that?
She decides to pick her dress up and walks towards him. Pachita realizes that this is all of his dreams coming true, but he decides to become an Ice Guy protagonist and break her ankles. He thinks that he must save this for when he's a man, but she decides to open her plot gateway, and Nekatani is confused about what's going on. Karen calls for Pachita to continue coming towards her, and he decides that he will go sweet home to Karen because she's pressuring him. She tells Nekatani that this is proof of the loving bond that they share together. She tells the good boy that he figured it out, and he thinks that she's really happy, so it must be okay. Nekatani asks her if she was doing all of this because she was jealous of her with her dog. Who raised this girl? Also, where can I find one like her?
Stop it. Get some help.
Nekatani decides that she will leave, and tells Pachita goodbye before leaving. She pets him, thanking him for saving her from the centipede, and Pachita is glad that she realized. Nekatani waves Karen goodbye, but she is angry as she waves her goodbye. Later on, Karen decides to come into the room wearing a dog outfit, and if you start to notice the editing becoming worse, don't worry, I'm just challenging myself to edit with one hand, that's all. He wonders why she's wearing a dog costume and getting on his level. She shows him a toy she got, telling him that it's a doggy translator, and that she will now know how he really feels. She asks him if he loves her, and he thinks that he is about to lose his mind with what he's witnessing. He barks that he loves her, and Karen gets excited to look at what her dog just told her. She takes a look and loses her mind, falling unconscious. She lays down crying, and he wonders what the thing said. He sees the comment saying that she looks like an ugly dog, and Karen begins developing plot in his face. Hold on a moment, I have to take my pie out of the oven once again.
Few moments later.
Sorry about that, guys. My creamer just keeps exploding everywhere and turning my pies into cream pies. Anyway, I will be able to stay much more focused now. She continues wagging her tail in front of him, and never mind, I will continue challenging myself to edit this video with one hand. She turns around and begins barking at him with her plot on the screen. Her mom comes in, asking her what these noises are. She sees her and asks her what she's doing. Karen turns over real quick and starts doing push-ups. Her mother asks her why she has dog ears on, and Karen takes them off. She then asks why she's wearing a dog tail.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Her mom tells her not to hurt herself, and Karen tells Pachita that she totally bought it. She asks Pachita if she's weird because she's into things that most people aren't into. He remembers hearing her say that before, and flashes back into a memory of him watering his flowers. The girl had come from behind him, covering his eyes and calling him senpai. She tells him to guess who, and he tells her that she's the only one who calls him senpai around here. She tells him that it's because he's such a loser that no one would want to talk to him unless they were watering plants, and goes to talk to a more athletic guy instead.
You're a victim!
He thinks that he must be living in a different world from them because that guy can talk to girls while he can't. He thinks that the only things he likes are plants because he doesn't need to talk to them or be friends with them. Karen comes next to him, asking him if he likes plants. He tells her that he guesses he does, and thinks that the Ice Queen is talking to him. He tells her that it's usually a girl thing to like watering plants, but she tells him that he isn't weird for liking it. She goes on to tell him that just because he likes something different doesn't mean he's weird. He thinks that ever since she'd told him those words, he couldn't stop crushing on her. He tries to bark that she's not weird, and she reads the dog translator, smiling at his response. He never found out what the translator told her, but it doesn't matter, because one day he wants to tell her those words himself. Karen looks at her phone, and sees that Nekatani is calling her. Nekatani tells her that she left her pencil at her house and asks her if she could bring it over. She tells her that they should study together more at her place next time, and that she can even walk Pachita over. The next night, Karen comes home tired, and Pachita thinks that she's been coming tired lately and wonders if she's having fun at school. She begins to develop plot. And the pie in my oven just exploded. He sees that she passed out and thinks that she must be exhausted from all the fun she has at school. He thinks that now is the perfect time for him to put his escape plan into motion. He thinks that Nekatani's home is right next to his house, so he will just send a package to Nekatani's home the next time they're over, and run out as she's getting the package. The only problem is that he needs to get to Karen's phone to place the package delivery. He walks forward, thinking that she looks so cute, but stops himself from drooling all over her. He walks forward and she grabs his tail, and as he struggles to reach her phone, he realizes that her grip is too strong. He begins licking her fingers, and plot noises begin to develop. She spreads her fingers, and he wonders if she wants him to keep licking her. She continues making plot development noises because she's being tickled super hard. Her hand gets wet, and he gets to go to her phone. He sees his picture on the lock screen, and manages to use her phone to place a package delivery. Now he has to just delete the search history. As he goes through her phone, he realizes that she's been looking for part-time jobs, and realizes that this whole time she's been working super hard just to take care of him. He thinks that she cares so much for him right now, but wonders if they'll go back to being distant when he's human once again. He wonders if he truly wants to go back to being human, and covers her. He thinks that he will definitely become a human again to tell her how he feels, and Karen says his name while sleeping. The next day, she tells him that she doesn't want him to cozy up to Nekatani while they're at her place again. She walks him to her place, and Pachita thinks that he finally got to see his home. Karen walks with him, and he sees her plot armor up the stairs. Karen rings the doorbell, and he sees that he needs to jump over the railing to get on his balcony. Nekatani welcomes her, and Nekatani is still scared of Pachita. Pachita's collar has been taken off, and he thinks that he can definitely run away while they're playing games. As he's about to escape, Karen begins reaching with her feet to make sure he's around. He thinks that this is his only chance to escape though, but Karen bends over and asks him where he thinks he's going. She tells him that he's not supposed to run off on his own, and she begins playing with his tail like a joystick while bent over under the table. He begins running, but Nekatani tries to stop him. He remembers how scared she is, so he barks at her and she falls over. She's scared he would bite her, so he jumps on her and begins barking while she cries. He sees that she's sweating, but wonders if this is even sweat.
What do you mean by that?
Karen comes, asking them if they're flirting with each other. The evil assassin in her comes out, and he thinks that his plan has been ruined. The doorbell rings, and the mailman has arrived. He remembers that he ordered a package to her house, and Nekatani asks if Karen ordered anything to her house. She shows her the package has her name on it, and Nekatani thinks that she's gotten a surprise from her. They begin opening it, and Pachita realizes that this is his only chance. He runs out and wants to jump onto the railing, but realizes that it's way taller than he thought. Nekatani comes running to him, and he jumps but doesn't make it. He begins barking at Nekatani, and remembers that she launched him off of her when she called him a dirty boy. He begins licking her plot, and she tells him to cut it out already. He begins licking her plot, like actually licking both her plot. He even gets under the shirt and keeps licking her plot. This time I think a volcano erupted. She knocks him up and he manages to land on his balcony. He looks through his window and sees that there's a girl in there that he doesn't recognize. She looks over and thinks she saw a dog there. He remembers that this is the girl who gardened with him, Yuzagi. She thinks she's just seeing things because she's tired, but he continues hiding under her dress. He wonders why she is in his house, and a storm begins brewing outside. She thinks that she will take this time to break into his room and look for plot magazines. She sees the heart chocolate he got for Valentine's Day. His head starts hurting, and he remembers a girl giving him heart chocolates and tells him they're from Karen. He wonders if these were memories from when he was human, and wonders who the girl that gave him this were. Yuzagi gets mad and begins ripping them for getting a present from another girl. He continues hiding, worried that she'll kick him out if she ever finds him. He continues looking at her plot armor, and Yuzagi begins crying, wondering why he disappeared out of nowhere. She wonders why he ran away and wishes that he had friends to protect him. She begins developing plot with the corner of the table, and thinks that the table's wood is made from very rough, hard wooden material. She continues playing with the table, but eventually gets called by Pachita's mom. If you got to this part of the video without your volcano exploding, you're a true plot master. So help me flood the comments section by saying "Rip Pachita, he just wanted a bone." No one will find that sus because he is just a dog. Till next time, my plot masters.